Night of the Living Dead, released in 1968 and was directed by George A. Romero, the godfather and founder of the zombie genre. This man was responsible for a whole genre and culture that is huge, and has generated millions of dollars, and has produced shows and countless zombie movies. Everybody at some point has talked or joked about zombies. This movie was monumental from the standpoint of the character Ben, who was played by Dwayne Jones. This was one of the first movies that had a black lead role, and that of which portrays the role of the hero. This movie had an extremely low budget, $117,000, and in its first year, it made over $700,000. An interesting fact about this movie, Romero thought that the scenes that involved blood looked better and gorier in black and white than in color, which was a huge factor for him deciding for this movie to be in black and white.
Black and white, the blood looked more real. That black and white blood looked gorier, and so I decided to stick with black and white.
This movie has some elements and situations that show how quickly people, when put in a situation of crisis, can just absolutely disintegrate and fly off the handle, and do some incredibly things, or acting in ways that make no goddamn sense. All morale and rational thinking just completely go to shit. Some key concepts I always like to ask myself after watching a movie is, was this movie entertaining, and is it rewatchable? To that I say yes to all three. The movie is certainly entertaining from the standpoint that this was the creation of a genre that so many people, including myself, love. Obviously, there are some scenes that are very laughable, given this was a horror movie shot in 1968. The deaths, especially for modern movie making, are hilarious and very stiff-looking, but the originality of this movie was just incredible. The main characters of Barbara and Ben are certainly characters you don't hate, and when caring about characters, that's certainly half the battle, that you don't want to see them necessarily die. So with that being said, this movie is indeed rewatchable. Now, time for spoilers. Here is your 5-second warning. Brother and sister arrive at a graveyard, also known as Johnny and Barbara. They're there to bring flowers to their father's tombstone, and suddenly they are attacked by the lone zombie that's all by himself. This walking dead man in a suit wrestles Johnny to the ground, hitting his head on a tombstone, and presumably killing him in the process. Barbara is able to escape, though, and get into the car that they drove there in, and then lock the door before the zombie is able to open it. In this world of The Walking Dead, this zombie, at least, is relatively smart. He picks up a rock and smashes the window. Barbara is able to break free, but starts looking back at the zombie and crashes the car like 50 feet later. This scene is pretty funny. The car barely brushes up against a tree, and she just abandons it and runs away. Pretty stereotypical woman thing to do in a movie back then. Just completely helpless and just makes the situation worse and can't drive. She then runs to this house that is pretty secluded out in the middle of this big field. She's scaling around the house looking for a way in and finds a door that happens to open for her. So now Barbara is in this house scoping it out and grabs a knife and starts continuing exploring the residence. One thing I find hilarious about this movie is, one moment it's broad daylight when she looks outside to see where the zombie is, and then 1 minute later she goes back to look outside after finding the phone isn't working and it turns pitch black. So now it's nighttime and there are 2 more zombies outside of the house, and Barbara goes up the stairs and sees what's up there, and she finds the remains of somebody who has been eaten. Barbara, in shock, bursts out the door into bright lights and is stunned and blinded by it. My eyes! My eyes! Our next character we get introduced to emerges. Ben, who has run out of gas and comes into the house, closes the door behind him and starts asking questions about, do you live here? And asks if there's a key to the fuel pump that's outside on the property. And the only thing that she can say is,
I know you're afraid, but we have to...
I don't know!
Ben decides to go outside and take out the 2 zombies that are destroying the headlights on his car. Right after this takes place, a zombie comes in through the back door that wasn't locked, and Barbara, just sobbing, doesn't notice, and luckily Ben comes in and is able to fend off and kill the zombie, and hits another one in the face that tries to come in. And you can see many more that are outside in the background approaching. Ben drags the dead zombie out of the house and sets it on fire in an attempt to neutralize these other ones from approaching. Ben tries to console Barbara and tells her that she's afraid just like he is, and pleads over and over for help, but she is comatose and has a deer in the headlights type look. Ben starts securing the house and nailing planks of wood across the doors and windows, and then briefly tells Barbara how he got there and how he had to drive through a horde of 50 to 60 zombies. And how bizarre it was that none of them moved or showed any signs of normal human reaction.
Just plowed right through them. They didn't move. They didn't run or just stood there staring at me.
And how the carnage took place that he witnessed firsthand of what zombies had done by this local diner that he was near, and how he witnessed this gasoline truck driving oddly. Zombies were in pursuit of it, and it wound up crashing and hitting a guardrail and ran over a gasoline pump in the process. And also recounts of how he heard this driver screaming after the zombies got him.
Still hear the man screaming.
So Ben says there was no human life there at all that was recognizable, and he was all alone. Barbara starts getting hysterical when she starts describing her account of what took place and starts screaming and acting ridiculous about how we need to go out and get Johnny. And Ben tells her, hey, look, your brother's dead. And as she tries to rip open the door, Ben grabs her and pulls her back, and she proceeds to hit him, and then he punches her and knocks her out. And let's be honest, she's just as useful unconscious as she was awake anyway. And if you're acting a fool, you gotta be, let's be honest, at a time of crisis like this, you need to be put down. Ben then proceeds to turn on the radio, and the broadcast says basically this is an epidemic taking place all over cities and rural areas, anywhere and everywhere, in which people are describing zombies as ordinary people in a trance-like state. Ben, snooping around the house trying to find anything valuable, winds up discovering a shotgun in a closet, and proceeds to go upstairs and check out the surroundings of what's up there. In the meantime, Barbara awakens and is listening to the radio, in which they are stating that these murderers are eating the flesh of the people that they kill.
Oh, that's fucked up. Balls. Oh, that's fucked up.
So right after this is happening, two random guys appear from the basement area, Harry and Tom. And they say they didn't expose themselves because they were not certain that they could have been zombies, that being Ben and Barbara. So Ben makes his way downstairs, and now an argument ensues with Harry about how downstairs in the basement is safer than in the main area, and how you only have to protect one door if you're down in the basement. Ben and Tom make the argument of how there are no windows downstairs, so let's say there was a rescue team outside, you wouldn't be able to see them or communicate, if the fortification is to fail. We're screwed downstairs if they get in. There's no way out. Ben goes to check the back area, and while passing through is grabbed by some zombie, and Tom helps hack the fingers off of this zombie. Hey, check out these special effects. Ben also proceeds to shoot a zombie in the head, and Tom asks his significant other, Judy, to come up from down the basement. We then get a look of down in the basement with Harry's wife and their daughter laying down unconscious. Harry makes his way downstairs, and he informs his wife, Helen, that Tom and Judy are staying upstairs and that there are two other people up there as well. Also tells Helen that he heard on the radio that mass murder is going on for the people to stay inside. And she freaks out on him about why are we staying downstairs if there's a line of communication upstairs as to what is going on outside. Helen suggests that Judy come down the basement so that she and Harry can come upstairs because they just found out that there's a television on the second floor of the house. So Ben winds up pulling a TV from upstairs, and the news broadcast announces how the dead are coming back to life after they have been murdered. Next on the TV broadcast, listings of rescue stations to go to in order to be protected, to have shelter, and medical attention. It also talks about how space experts are being consulted about the matter at hand. This is where it starts getting crazy, the explanation for what's taking place. So this Explorer satellite that went to Venus and started to come back down to Earth but didn't get back. NASA destroyed it because it contained some level of radiation, high-level radiation, and now the destruction of that satellite may be connected to the zombie outbreak.
That satellite, you'll recall, started back to Earth, but never got here. That's the space vehicle which orbited Venus and then was purposely destroyed by NASA when scientists discovered it was carrying a mysterious high-level radiation with it. Could that radiation be somehow responsible for the wholesale murders we're now suffering?
Then there's an interview with a military official and a doctor that swears that the Venus probe is responsible while the military representative isn't completely sure. So of course, like normal in Washington, we have dysfunction. So the broadcast ends with the doctor saying that anyone dead must be burned because the zombification process takes place minutes after death.
The body should be disposed of at once, preferably by cremation.
Well, how long after death, then, does the body become reactivated?
It's only a matter of minutes.
Ben comes up with this idea of getting gas from the pump on the property and to make Molotov cocktails and use them as weapons to keep the zombies at bay. Followed by a heart-to-heart between Tom and Judy and her questioning if they are doing the right thing, attempting to leave the house. So Harry's the one who's going to throw the Molotov cocktail from outside the window upstairs. So Tom and Ben can get the truck. Ben takes with him a torch to help keep the zombies away. Judy, at the last moment, comes running outside to join them. The key doesn't work, and Ben decides to shoot the lock, and now the gasoline is spewing everywhere, and the torch that Ben had, which was one of the table legs from inside the house, gets hit with the gasoline. So now the truck is on fire. So what can go wrong is going wrong. And as Tom is trying to get Judy out of it, the truck explodes and kills them both. So now it's just Ben on his own trying to navigate through the zombie horde. Ben does get back and calls for Harry to open the door, and he does not. Obviously, his true character shows Harry, and you can see he really doesn't care for and look at Ben too fondly when he is willing to leave him outside there with the zombies. So Ben, the torch that he had brought back with him from the truck, ditches it and is able to kick in the door and get inside, and the look he gives Harry is priceless. Like, you piece of shit, motherfucker. So now Ben is trying to barricade the door from the zombies getting in. Harry's like, well, he got in, so I guess I gotta help him now, or I might die myself too. Once the door is secure, Ben punches Harry numerous times and tells him he should feed him to the zombies, which honestly would be justified at this point. This next part is the most disturbing part of the movie. The zombies go over to the remains of the truck with Tom and Judy inside, and we finally see the zombies gnawing away and eating the remains of them. Yeah, for audiences in 1968, this had to be extremely terrifying. Now the talks of trying to get out amongst who are left start. Harry reveals his doubts about whether they'll be able to get anywhere with their child, who is barely conscious and unable to move.
Forget it. It's at least a mile.
Johnny has the keys.
You gonna carry that child a mile through that army of things out there?
I can carry the kid. What's wrong with her? How'd she get hurt?
One of those things grabbed her.
Bit her on the arm.
And right on cue, another TV broadcast announces that scientists say that the radiation is continuing to increase and that anybody who dies will come back to life.
At this hour, they report the level of the mysterious radiation continues to increase steadily. So long as this situation remains, government spokesmen warn that dead bodies will continue to be transformed into the flesh-eating ghouls. All persons who die during this crisis, from whatever cause, will come back to life to seek human victims unless their bodies are first disposed of by cremation.
The broadcast forwards the message to the Survival Command Center at the Pentagon.
Officials are quoted as explaining that since the brain of a ghoul has been activated by the radiation, the plan is kill the brain and you kill the ghoul.
Right as the broadcast ends, the power goes out and one of the zombies picks up the former torch, now just broken table leg left outside by Ben, and the zombies are really starting to bust down the boards of the windows and are picking up rocks and smashing the windows. Ben drops the rifle while trying to protect the window, and Harry points it at Ben and tells Helen to go downstairs. And as he is doing that, Ben sees the moment and throws a plank of wood at Harry and charges him, wrestles the gun away, and shoots him. Now the zombies are breaking through the top of the door and start grabbing Helen, and Harry stumbles down the stairs, making his way to his daughter before passing out. We then get to see Barbara finally have a breakthrough and try to hold off the zombies and help Helen. Helen quickly bolts downstairs to find her daughter, and she discovers that Karen is gnawing away at Harry. And as she starts walking towards her, and she falls down. And Karen, who was her daughter, takes a trowel and stabs her repeatedly, and it's kind of hilarious because Helen just stares at her terrified and doesn't move or try to get out of the way, just big eyes, and just takes the stabbing over and over again. And you're gonna watch this and be like, fight back! Your daughter's dead! Now it's just down to Barbara and Ben, and the zombies are now in and have taken Barbara away. Ben is able to get down into the basement area because they've taken Barbara. Barbara's gone.
Oh, help me! Help me! Oh, help me!
And discovers Harry and Helen. And as Harry is coming back from the dead to be a zombie, Ben shoots him again and realizes he needs to kill Helen too, because, like the broadcast said, if you die, you're coming back to life with all the radiation that's going on. We go from this to police forces sweeping through the area, trying to neutralize the living dead. Ben finally emerges after hearing gun noises, but he's got a gun, so watching this, you're thinking this isn't going to end good. One of the men with a gun says he heard a noise in the house, and the sergeant sees that it's Ben approaching, and it's a shadow figure, so you can't make out exactly what it is. And Ben winds up getting killed. Everybody in the movie that started out winds up dying. The end. It's important to give some context, though, about the ending. The character Ben, George A. Romero didn't know what race he was going to be, so the character was going to die no matter what. But it being that it was the 1960s and Dwayne Jones was a black man playing Ben, people thought it might have been a racially motivated thing, and that just was not the case. And here's some video of George Romero giving context to that.
Dwayne Jones, the actor who played Ben, was very concerned, and almost the only one who was concerned about his being African American. We were going, hey, come on, man, it's 1968. We're all past all of that. Little did we know, right? When we made the first print of the movie, and we were driving it to New York to show it to potential distributors, we heard driving in the car. One of the producers, Russ Streiner, and I heard the news on the radio that Martin Luther King had been assassinated. Now all of a sudden it was a black film. It became a black film. Even though when Jack Russo and I wrote the script, the character in the script, we assumed him to be white. When Dwayne agreed to play the role, we didn't change the script. The same things would have happened to him if the actor had been white. The fact that these redneck posse guys shot him, that became racial instead of just a mistaken identity, which is really what we intended. I think that's one of the reasons that people believe to this day that it's important. And in a certain way, it was a mistake.
It's a somber ending, that he lived through the zombie fiasco and winds up getting killed by gunshot. This ending, while in many ways is very is one that is memorable from the standpoint that none of the main characters live, and everybody gets killed. My final score of the 1968 version of Night of the Living Dead, can I get a drum roll, please? An A. It's an all-time classic horror movie, and it's the first zombie film ever made. When you take into account the very low budget and Romero having the courage to cast Dwayne Jones just years after the Civil Rights Act and having intense and suspenseful scenes not only with the zombies but amongst the human characters with one another as well, the creation of the zombie genre and how this movie added to the horror genre, the A rating is certainly justified, I think. We take a look at the Rotten Tomatoes score. Tomato Meter gives it a 97. The audience gives it an 87. My grade certainly lines up with their views. And with that being an A, this movie gets a woolly seal of approval.